So the Gemini 3 benchmarks have been leaked. Let's have a look through them really quickly. So I was scrolling through Reddit, I saw it, and I decided to just have a quick read through, and it's been leaked. It was there and then it was deleted. However, we did manage to save it on the Wayback Machine. So let's have a look and go through the notes that I took about the Gemini 3 release, and I'll try to be really quick. So let's get into it. So Gemini 3, the main difference with Gemini 3 is that the switching to a strategy of sparse, a mixture of experts. So what that means is that there's a little, from my research, there's a little router that anytime that there's a request, that router goes to individual experts in that field. So that may be an expert in video, that may be an expert in math, I'm not sure about that, but something like that. So that seems to be the advancement in Gemini 3 Pro compared to 2.5 Pro, because that's what a lot of their main focus has been on, and that has been what they said was one of the main improvements was to the architecture, where they have this strategy that has different experts that are activated when it calls them, which is interesting. It's the same as 2.5 Pro. You can send them videos, audio, 1 million tokens, so that didn't change. And let's continue. So it was trained and it was great. This document, I'll include the link below, and it has all the information about how it was trained. Not all the information, just a summary. And then it was using the TPUs from Google, which is interesting. The reason why I highlighted it is because it is interesting that they're using that now. It was a frontier model before with 2.5 Pro, but now with 3 Pro as well, they don't need to worry about NVIDIA, and they're just living their own life, doing their own thing, and using their own GPUs or whatever they have, TPUs. So that's interesting. I thought this was cool as I was reading it, how you can see how the training was done. So you can see the software that they used. So they explain the hardware, the software, so that's quite interesting. They mentioned something about Google anti-gravity. When you open that, it doesn't open, so this seems to be a new thing that I am excited to explore. Let's continue. So this is what we want to see, the benchmarks, which are interesting, and we'll go through each one just quickly. So humanities last exam, this has been a really popular benchmark recently, and there's a drastic improvement. This is one of the main improvements that people in the Reddit comments were saying. I don't really understand it too well, but it's a lot higher than 5.1, because 5.1 was the frontier. This is the GPT-5. This is the whale that was meant to be incredible, but then Google is crushing them with 37.5. So yeah, these benchmarks are very drastic. When you go through the comments on Reddit, if you read through them, people are saying, and you can also see the data yourself, that so crazy improvement compared to what we had before and what we have now. And the main things that stood out to me were just the benchmarks that are really popular. And of course, benchmarks don't tell the full story, but still, they help you understand what it is good at. So the main things that stood out was the main benchmarks, and then the ScreenSpot Pro, which is interesting because I remember trying to do a project before with Gemini, and using Gemini to automate a task on the computer. So it seems Google has now changed the focus, or has a deep focus on this agentic flow, where it's actually real world use cases, where this API is actually useful for many different things compared to OpenAI, which may be smart, but it's just text or it's just image. While Google is focusing on video, is focusing on screen understanding, which can be good for agentic frameworks and video recording. A slight improvement in video analysis, so we'll see how drastic it is, a 3% change. And then when we go to the coding performance, that is also interesting, is Sonnet, according to the benchmark, is still ahead, but it's so close. It's so close, and it's nice according to these benchmarks. Now, is that now Codex from OpenAI, Sonnet 4.5, and now Google, they're all in that same range, 76 to 77%, which is very nice, because before we just had Claude leading, and then when their Claude code was getting slow, then we were just stuck. But now we have OpenAI, which is very usable for their codex, and we also have now Google. So we'll see how well that is, but it's great. Just Claude is still winning on that side. And when we talk about context, Google is the king of context, where they have 1 million context tokens, context size. So they're still leading when it comes to, if you have a lot of information, if you have a lot of information, then you give it to Gemini, and they're still crushing it. Okay, almost finished. Training data, the knowledge date was cut off. Gemini, the knowledge date was cut off January 2025. And there's some things on safety, and it's still a normal large language model, maybe smarter, but it's still vulnerable to jailbreaks. It's still vulnerable to degrading if the conversation is taking too many turns. I think that, changing subjects and all this and that. So awesome, that's that. I just wanted to share that, because it was just released just 2 hours ago, the model card, and then it was deleted by Google. And then that means it will be released very soon, meaning get ready and get excited for using the API. For me, I'm excited about using the API for video understanding. That's what I'm looking forward to. And yeah, it will be great, a new frontier model. And this may be the GPT-5 that we actually wanted to get.